This is the Horse Radio Network. This is episode 53 of Horse Tip Daily, a different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you one day at a time. Today's tip is sponsored by Equestrian Collections for the whole universe of equestrian shopping at your fingertips at a price you can afford. Enjoy today's tip. I am Glenn the Geek from Lexington, Kentucky, and you're listening to Horse Tip Daily. Well, I'll tell you what, we have Heather back with us, Heather Blitz from the Dressage radio show. She's off her vacation now and back to work over there. And we share Heather's training tip with you every week because they are really good, and I know people are enjoying listening to them. They get a little more in-depth and a little more technical than some of our other tips, which I think is good as well. You know, these tips aren't for everyone. You're not going to agree with every tip every day, and we know that. We're just throwing them out there for you to judge what you decide that you believe in or don't believe in, or what you think is good or not good. But we do want to hear from you, so if you want to drop me an email at Glenn with 2 N's at horseradionetwork.com, we would appreciate hearing from you about the various tips and your thoughts on them. There's also lots of conversation that goes on about each tip every day over at Facebook, actually. Just go to Facebook and search for Equestrian Collections up in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll see all the tips are posted on the Equestrian Collections fan page every day, and there's a lot of conversation that goes on around them. So if you would like to chat about the tips, that's a good place to do it, actually. Well, today we hear from Heather, and she was in episode 17 of the Dressage Radio Show, done by Heather Blitz and Chris Stafford. You'll hear them talking here a little bit. I am not interactive with this tip simply because this is pre-recorded, and I'm just playing it for you, as I said, because they're so good. We would like you to, if you'd like to listen to the whole show, go to dressageradio.com, and that's where you can find this whole episode 17. Before we get to that, Equestrian Collections is getting all their fall merchandise in now for rider and horse. They have some great stuff, especially for the riders. They have all different, I think it's like 20 different brands of jackets and clothing and winter wear. And anything you're going to need for the fall and winter, you can find at Equestrian Collections. Plus there's 19, I counted anyway, 19 different brands of blankets and sheets for your horse. What more could you want? You know, check out Equestrian Collections because they have a huge selection. They get it out to you quickly, and the third thing is the price. There are prices that can't be beat. So stop over to equestriancollections.com for all of your riding and your horse needs for the fall and winter. They have it. You can get it easily. You will love doing business with them. They are a company that are worth checking out. So that's equestriancollections.com. All right, here's Heather.
Well, Heather, I'm sure you've got lots of training tips in your head after your clinic. All sorts of things come to mind. Do they? And probably new ideas, some old, some new. Have you got anything different for us this week?
Well, you're exactly right, Chris. You read my mind. I have a lot of things that I've been thinking about, what I would want to say and talk about today. And I ended up deciding on one that did come up quite often in a number of the lessons. And it's the first time I've sort of talked about it the way I did. The way that what we're going for with the horses, the frame and the shape and the connection and the way they're supposed to appear sort of at the end of the story, that it needs to be thought of as not being man-made, but instead, if you think about it, as being equine-made. So those words kind of came out and started kind of striking people in a pretty useful way. And I see fairly often that, a rider might think, okay, first you get your horse on the bit, and then you can make transitions or movements or work within the exercises that you want to work in. And I think that's wrong to put it in that order, that, having the horse, quote, on the bit, which is a phrase that, okay, it can be defined by many different people in many different ways. But if we talk about the phrase on the bit, that should sort of be at the end of the story and not the beginning of the story. And I think if riders think first you get your horse on the bit and then you ride, is where they can sort of try to get the horse there in man-made ways, ways that the hand might cause the shape of the neck or affect the horse's nose or the front of the horse to be in a shape that is a little premature, or before the horse has learned to be in the right balance and is responsive to light aids and things that should bring the horse more naturally or in an equine-made way, quote, onto the bit. And first the rider has to learn how to be on the horse's back in a way that is basically out of his way, and then teach the horse to be really promptly responsive to really simple aids. And if the horse can respond, in really, really prompt, no delay kind of ways to the rider asking for simple transitions and, just go and stop and, when they have to turn left or right and the rider can stay out of the way, then I think the horse is in the right kind of balance in that moment, that if then the horse accepts the contact, that it can be very equine made, that the horse is looking sort of at the end of the story. The horse is on the bit and looking like we want them to look for the level where they're performing. So those words just kind of stuck with me throughout that tour, and I think it helped quite a lot of riders in the lessons anyway, and hopefully it does for some of the listeners out there listening to this. And Chris, what do you think of when you hear those words? Does that make sense to you?
It totally does. And what I see with horses and riders now, and often with the riders, especially the adult amateurs or the people that have coming from different walks of life, when they get on a horse, so they maybe have gone to a competition, they've watched trainers, and they think that's what their horse should look like. And they put it into this false frame that you can call it on the bit, you can put it in a framework or a shape. And they think that's visually what they're aiming for before they ride the horse.
Yeah, that's another great way to put it. It's exactly what this training tip was about. And if it's just sort of a poised frame, it is sort of man-made, and it has nothing to do with it. The horse is there because of the athletic position that they're in, because they can perform really prompt transitions and such. So, so I'm glad that it makes sense to you too.
It totally makes sense, and what disappoints me is, and some may say I'm being a bit of a purist here, Heather, but when I see people strap their horses down with drawing reins, with running reins, and they pull them into this overbent shape because they're not riding them through from behind. They're not riding the back of the horse at all. They're just putting them into this shape. And then they take the running reins, the draw reins off, and then they'll jump a couple of fences and go in the ring. This happens a lot, I think, in the jumper world. And I find that disappointing, because it's just riding the front of the horse. It's not riding the back end. It's making the horse do something that, is not being ridden naturally to create that shape. He's being forced into that shape.
Well, right. And I think, when it comes to having to force them into the shape, the whole chapter of keeping the horse in balance has really been missed. And then, the symptoms of the horse not being in balance can often be that the head and neck is not the right shape, or that the horse is too heavy in the front and there's resistance in the front. And so then the draw reins come on in many cases, and they try to just sort of deal with the symptoms rather than the cause. And I think that's where it goes wrong. And, not to say that drawing reins are every single time used in the wrong way, but I think most of the time they sort of are on to be dealing more with symptoms rather than causes too.
Yes, and it's a shame, because then you lose the horse's natural way of going. That you fast track that. You just, if you will, bypass it, because the horse doesn't get a chance to create, to develop his natural way of going and be ridden through that lovely natural way of going. He's put into an artificial shape.
That's right.
And you wonder how many people are doing this because they think they should, because that's what the trainers recommend, or that's what they see. or it's because they've never learnt how to do it properly, and or they are amateurs and they don't have the time to put in the groundwork and the legwork to strengthen their seat and ride the horse naturally from behind.
Well, I would say D, all of the above. That all of those reasons, and then another one is also that even if a trainer says something really, really well, it can also be different how it's perceived by the listener, and maybe they just misunderstood, through a certain set of words that were used, and it goes into the rider's ear in a certain way that isn't always right. So that's another thing that can go wrong too. Even if they're told the right thing, they may not have sort of understood it right.
And I think also if they're listening too much to what they think they should be listening to, that they forget what they're feeling. Or don't
that can be a challenge, yeah.
Don't get so in tune with what they're actually feeling and just stay with what they're feeling. But they may not know how to interpret what they're feeling too. So I think it all belongs in that pot, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Well, thank you to Heather and Chris for that conversation. It was very good. You can hear the whole episode with Heather and Chris on the Dressage Radio Show at dressageradio.com, episode 17. So check that out. They had Courtney King Dye on as their interview this week, and that was a lot of fun also. I'll be right back here shortly with a Geek Pick. Well, my Geek Pick for today is TweetDeck. If you're into Twitter now and you've been using... When you first start with Twitter, you have to kind of try and figure it out, and you're probably going to twitter.com, and that's where you're posting your tweets, and you're reading all your tweets. But very quickly you realize that that's not the best method for doing that, and that there are a lot of clients or little programs out there that you can see your friends' tweets, and you can see what's going on a lot better and post better using one of these other third-party applications. And the one I use is called TweetDeck. That's TweetDeck.com, TweetDeck.com. I just found it. I checked out a couple of them, and this one just seemed to be the easiest to use and has the most functionality with it. Also, with TweetDeck now not only following your Twitter feeds with all of your friends and what they're saying, you can also follow your friends on Facebook. It's all in one application. It's really a neat little application, and it's free. You can find, again, at tweetdeck.com. What's cool about it is it's set up in a column form, and you can have different columns for different things. Like I have all my friends in the left column, so any tweets they do are showing up there. I have all of anything relating to horse radio, anything that talks about horse radio, which is our Twitter name, at Horse Radio. Anything that mentions horse radio, I have set up in the middle column. And then I have a couple of other columns to the right where I track searches. So I track every tweet that mentions a horse, every tweet that mentions equine. So I have that in there as well. It's really cool how it's done. It's so simple and easy to use. You basically download it to your computer. You put in your username and password for Twitter, and you just get it set up. I think you'll figure it out. It's pretty easy. It also works on Mac, on Internet Explorer, on Chrome. Works on all the major browsers. So I think you're going to find that works pretty well for you. They also do have a application for the iPhone. So if you have an iPhone, I recommend TweetDeck on there as well. And as I said, it's all free. Check it out at tweetdeck.com. Well, if you'd like to send me an email, as I mentioned earlier in the show, you can send it to Glenn, 2 N's, at horseradionetwork.com. Tell me about your favorite internet equine site, the place you go every day to check out all the cool stuff. You can where do you find all of your equestrian news? I'd love to hear from you about that kind of thing as well, and we'll make those our geek picks. And don't forget to check out all the other great shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com. They're all listed there, and we do many of them. Well, I'll be back again tomorrow with another new expert and a different horse tip. Until then, stay safe, everyone.